As the presidential election slated for February the 25th draws closer, the new Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, has inaugurated the Presidential Campaign Council, PCC, for the election. Speaking in Abuja during the inauguration of the Presidential Campaign Council, the NNPP presidential candidate, Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwanso, reiterated that he will mop up the over 20 million out-of-school children from the streets of Nigeria by providing 500,000 classrooms across the states of the Federation to accommodate those children as the President of Nigeria. However, he assured that he and his party were determined to reform the education sector to improve quality and access at all levels. Kwankwanso also said that they will soon pause their party's campaign activities to enable him travel to London to honor the invitation from the Royal Institute of International Affairs, that is Chatham House, to present a discussion paper to his selected global audience. Joining us now on this show this morning to discuss the NNPP's campaign activities and the inauguration of the Presidential Campaign Council is Abubakar Yesufu, spokesperson of the new Nigeria People's Party Presidential Campaign Committee. Welcome to the morning show, Mr. Yesufu. Good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much. Nice being here.
Okay, fine. Well, we now have the Presidential Campaign Council inaugurated of your party, the NNPP.
Yeah.
And we're told that campaigns will start from January 15. Two major things. We're told that it's going to be a road show across the six geopolitical zones. What is the strategy for that, considering the security situation in the country? Secondly, your presidential candidate talked a lot about the education sector. He says he's going to place some kind of pause on JAMB exams. So if you sit for exams, you may not take another one for the next 4 years to gain admission. Then he will build 500,000 classrooms. Then he will take 20.5 million children out of the streets and into the classrooms. Where is that money going to come from? Because if he wins, he will have to deal with 77 trillion debt. He will have to deal with so many other issues. So there must be a practical way of achieving this that is clear to him, that may not be clear to other people.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me once more. Let me quickly say that our presidential candidate, and by the grace of God, our president in waiting, is not new to rehabilitating, out of school children. In fact, that is maybe the main reason why we are not so prolific. We don't hog the headlines when it comes to what he has done in the past. That, as a matter of fact, is a mirror of what we intend to do when we now face the bigger picture. Rabiu Musa Kwankwanso is not a name that is new in Nigeria. If I may just take it straight out of the numerous things they have done, is what I would call the miracle from Mera, where 4 children per state, is being sponsored in that international school. And if you compare it side by side with the sage, Obafemi Awolowo in the western region, now deceased, Professor Abusa Ali in the then Midwestern region, and even to an extent Obemudia, you will discover that he's like a giant, among midgets. We have been able to do our homework, and behind this very prodigious character, you discover that we have a man like Professor Akali, who is a professor of political science, former special advisor to the president, former chairman, governing council, University of Technology, Mina. Professor Agwai, another legal head, from the legal profession. And again, of course, Boba Galadima, the secretary of the trustees, board of trustees, who has consistently refused compromise and demanded justice, or who is decidedly on the side of the oppressed. So we have a prototype, and I think if we use the entire day to talk about how we are going to realize this, you probably will not be able to have enough time. Professor Agwai has been working all around the clock as a legal head, then the chairman has also been very effective. So it's known to us, our roadshow is not going to be a surprise, because the presidential candidate, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, has been in the political space for more than 30 years. And the tree he has planted is already yielding fruits in form of doctors, in form of lawyers, and what have you. So these people are drawn across the country, and they are very, very ready. They are intelligent. And in our association, in our meeting, we discovered that what we're talking about is actually how we are going to realize this. And it was an assemblage of fertile minds. That is not a challenge to us at all. What we are really talking about is perhaps the other parties, the so-called big parties, if you permit me, like the PDP and the APC. You know, you will agree that the APC coming from a checkered past, you know, and the PDP, sorry, the APC, you know, like somebody rightly put it, it's like a choice choosing between Otapiapia and Sniper. You know, it's like looking for a broken moral past. You talk about the PDP, and the APC is a damaged brand. So what comes out very neatly out of all this is the NNPP. I have decided to leave the Labour out of this. For some obvious reasons, which if you probe me further, I perhaps will tell you. It's not a challenge to us at all. We have been working on this, and it's not going to be a challenge to us, because if you look at the other big parties, they have been looking at Nigerians as if we are conquered people. We are descendants of a suffering people. We are actually descendants of a people, and we are determined to suffer no longer. That is why, if you were able to come to that inauguration yesterday, you discovered that it was a rainbow coalition of fertile minds, men, women, physically challenged, that Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso has been able to take out of the streets, educated them, pilot, lawyers, and all that. And suffice it to say that these people came there on their own volition. That is why when you see, an agglomeration of Kwankwasians, they are people that are organic in nature. They are people that are committed to the cause. And we are going to take this very far. And like my chairman once said, Nigeria is going to be shocked and awed by our performance and our result by the time we make our victorious entry into Aso Rock. We say this and we mean it.
All right, thank you for that, for us expounding on that question around your plans for education reform. Beyond education reform, in his manifesto, your presidential candidate had also talked about revamping the economy. And that's quite critical, because today, we've talked about the fact that this government will be leaving Nigeria with a debt of 77 trillion naira at the end of its tenure. And so the economy is big for all presidential candidates. Your candidate has said that using a 3-stage approach, he's going to recover the economy. He has a recovery plan, job creation, investment. I'd like you to speak more to that, please.
Well, if you take, we always use Kano as a prototype. If you take Kano State, where it's coming from, you discover that this man, this icon of a man, has been governor in that state twice. And when he was leaving office the first time, he left over $43 million. That was meant to revamp the electrical, to the power, independent power projects. And when he came the second time, he also cleared the debt that he met the first time. So it's not new to this kind of thing. So if you take Kano, like I said, as a microcosm of Nigeria, you discover that he has performed a miracle before there, and he'll be able to do it again.
All right. So 2 things. Let me just get it right now.
Yeah.
You said your candidate will make jam, once every 4 years. But the APC government has remitted, or jam under the APC government has remitted over 30 billion to the federal coffers. So at a time we are complaining that we don't have revenue, is your candidate saying that it's acceptable to lose the jam revenue? And also, your candidate always claims that he saved money and all of that, and he didn't borrow. But there's a fact check here on the cable that says Kwankwaso borrowed. Kanu's domestic debt increased over 1,000% between 2011 and 2015. How do you reconcile those two things? Because that's what you're kind of, I didn't borrow, I settled debts and everything. And this is on the 21st of November 2010. Kwankwaso borrowed. And over 1,000%, that's what the domestic debt increased by between 2011 and 2015. You can check the cable for that. And also, like I asked before, are you saying that we should remove the 30 billion revenue from JAM because you want to save resources? Those two questions, sir.
Yes, sir. Firstly, let me make it very clear that Kwankwaso did not borrow. I'm not surprised this is an election year. People are out to definitely malign. We at the Kwankwaso movement, we do not really believe in criticizing, because as we are taught, the professor will always say, quote, beware of those who are constantly critical of others. For when you turn your back, they may deal with you in the same manner. Such is the identity of the negative man. Avoid them like the plague, unquote. I still put it to you that fact check is not correct. That fact check must have been put there by somebody that is out to smear my presidential candidate. Kwankwaso did not borrow a kobo. Indeed, he left excess money in the coffers. That's why the governor that came after him was able to carry on. And when he came back the second time, he also met a lot of colossal debt, which he cleared in no time. So anybody saying that Kwankwaso borrowed, we are challenging them to prove this, and they will not be able to prove this. It's an election year, they can say anything.
Okay, let me read this fact check to you. He said in the year 2011, when he was elected, the existing domestic debt of 5.8 billion. In 2015, when he left office, the state debt had increased to 65 billion, a 1,008% increase. There's an increase in the existing domestic debt.
Well, I don't know who is saying this. Is it my
it's the cable? Is the cable that is saying it? Is the cable that is saying? So it might be that, like you say, he didn't borrow, or how did the domestic debt increase? That's what I'm asking here.
Yeah, I still stand to be corrected. I believe that that's your fact check.
Could it be due to interest payments or anything?
I disagree with that. At the Kwankwaso movement, we have not been able to lay our hands on any credible debt. If it were so, it would have been published and in the social and mainstream media. That is one. Then secondly, you talked about the colossal money that we will probably be missing from JAM and all that. I'll tell you that that is a question of accountability or lack of it. Kwankwaso, like you know, when he was in Kano State, he started the treasury, the single treasury system and the e-payment. That is why the state is very buoyant. That's why up to today, it's not in debt. So I challenge that authority and that source that my presidential candidate did not leave a debt.
Well, Mr. Yesufu, it's good to see your party freshly energized. And, now Senator Kwankwaso wants to go all out to campaign. Yeah. But all the polls that we have seen, either from ANAP or from NOI or from other sources, or even projections by media houses, I've not seen anywhere where your candidate is shown as having very strong electoral profile in this particular election. So where is that confidence coming from? Or you think the polls are not useful?
Yeah. Let me tell you one one of our weak points, weak in quotes. We don't hog the headlines. And we have been able to sit down and we have advised ourselves, we do not believe in all these polls. Indeed, when I first had my first interview in Lagos, I dismissed those polls as a, quote, supplying piece of mysticism and a high-sounding nothing, unquote. We are going to shock Nigerians and we are going to shock the poll observers. Do not forget that even in America, people thought Mrs. Clinton was edging towards the White House. But Donald Trump surprised all and sundry. So that we don't rely on it. We're working day and night, and we are not going to cure our weakness this time by hogging the headlines. For one thing, we are not so rich. We don't have deep pockets. But what we lack in deep pocket ownership we have a lot of goodwill, and it is that goodwill which our presidential candidate is latching on to ensure that we'll inherit, we are able to take out these two parties that have been able to hold us by the jugular and made us beggar nation, even among nations.
All right, you keep talking about two parties and the value of polls. To be fair, polls are not, some of them are independently conducted. So we have the ANA polls. They're not driven by the political parties. So it's not them hogging the headlines. It's the opinions of Nigerians who were polled that have been published. The same with This Day by the editorial board, looking at antecedents and some parameters to judge as to who. And to be fair, like Dr. Abati mentioned, NNPP hasn't come up as second or third. In fact, in many of these polls, you've come fourth in the results. That's one. And then the second thing is that people have also said that, yes, you're saying that you're not hogging the headlines, but then how do people get to know about your party if you stay quiet or you stay silent? You're inaugurating the PCC Presidential Campaign Council yesterday, which is great. However, others have said that it's coming a bit too late, just 46 days to the election, yesterday 47 days to the elections. Is this what we should expect from you in terms of the snail speed in responding during this election season?
Yeah, Kwakwasiya as a movement and as a driving force behind the New Nigerian People's Party has been existing for a long time. We've been having informal discussions, informal talks. So it was not difficult assembling them or assembling these eggheads to come and form a part and parcel of the presidential campaign team. But let me here and now tell you that according to Father Damien, that used to live among the lepers in Kuala Lumpur, those, I'm quoting verbatim, those who must lead the people must also learn to sleep with them, eat their food, breathe their air, and see their vision, unquote. Kwankwaso has been living with his people since he came back from the UK. He has not even traveled out. So they know him and he knows them. We know where he's lacking and all that. If you've been able to see our manifesto, I intend to oblige you with one if you so desire, from Accra. You discover that it's about 135 pages. And it's the compendium, cuts across what he sometimes, because apart from being my presidential candidate, is also my teacher. We sometimes call it the five-fingered philosophy, which cuts across social regeneration, economic determinism, mental emancipation, political resurgimento, and even spiritual balance. So if you go through his manifesto, and if you really see it very well, discover that it's written in very simple prose. Somebody in the secondary school can read it and appreciate same. So we're in the field. We are not just in field to contest, we're in the field to win. And we know that the two parties, PDP, APC, they are very bad products to sell. And even to a large extent, the Labour Party. We're going to take them out, and winning this election has never been in doubt. Kwakwasiya as a movement has always been there, right from over 30 years, that Rabi Musa Kwankwaso has been in public space. So it's not difficult at all. So even if it's 3 weeks to the time, we'll be able to realize the objective. We say this with all confidence and with all sense of purpose and humility.
Okay, I'd like to ask you another question. Because this issue of debt and Kwankwaso keeps creeping up, there's another story. You can go and check Premium Times of May 20, 2015, that says outgoing Canada State Governor Rabi Musa Kwankwaso is reported to have left over 200 billion naira in debt. An official of the State Treasury Department has said, on condition of anonymity based, for fear of victimization. And there are also stories about, a 54 billion for 5-kilometer road across different local governments. So you can fact check all the stories and verify them. Secondly, I'd like to ask, I've read through your manifesto. It's very welfareist. We'll do this, the state will do it. It's very big government, because what you're saying in the manifesto is that the state will pretty much give you bread and butter. But how are you going to pay for it in an economy that is already in a deficit? 77 trillion as we speak is the debt that will be left for the next administration. And what Kwankwaso is saying, that all the revenue parts, don't worry, forget it, like JAM and some other areas like that, the state will take care of you. How is he going to do it?
Yeah, I think you have not been too thorough in reading that manifesto. You would have seen the particular section or page where it talked about the value-added tax at being at just 7.5%, whereas the company income tax is like zero. We are not really working enough to increase our tax base. And like I told you, we have very determined team that will be working around the clock. And whosoever that has told you that this is our debt portfolio and is scared, so to say, to tell you where his source is, I think he should not be relying on. Apart from being the spokesperson, I'm also a lawyer. I believe that facts are very secret. If he's sure of his facts, he should be able to state his name and let us know. And don't forget that Kwankwaso is not a governor now. He doesn't enjoy any immunity. If this were so, and some of those debts were really shadowy, they ought to have taken him before the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, like they have done to some political parties. But I keep saying that this is not true, and it can never be true. Kwankwaso, like we know, is a man that we like to. You would like to embrace, you like to meet, and indeed, if you were to wake up Shakespeare from the grave today, perhaps we would have described this in this term, that we suppose him virtuous, we know him noble, a fresh and stainless man, in voices well divulged, free, well grounded, and in dimension, a gracious person, unquote. We disown the debt, and we challenge the author to come forward and let us see how he'll be able to prove same.
Well, Mr. Yesufu,
whatever that has happened, that is not going to, yes.
Please, could you talk a bit about the vice presidential candidate of the NNPP? Yes, Senator Kwankwaso has name recognition, but his running mate from Edo State, Bishop Isaac Daosa, first when he was announced, yes, when he was announced, he said he was shocked. And not much is known about him, apart from Senator Kwankwaso describing him as a man of impeccable integrity. What exactly is the role that he's playing, or that he will play, as the NNPP goes full blast with the campaign? And why is he so quiet?
Yes. Let me quickly say this, that perhaps it was an error of the head from my part not to have mentioned his name. If you remember how I was able to give you a compendium of our manifesto just now. The first one was social regeneration, economic determinism, mental emancipation, political resurgimento, and even spiritual balance. The last one, spiritual balance, is what has given effect to the presence of Bishop Idahosa in the equation. He's not just a Christian, he's not just a professor of law, he's a full-time worker in God's ministry. You will agree with me that the issue of religion is very, very sensitive. So that's why we have decided to take this man, who was also, it might interest you to note that he was a student leader in his days. And you will be seeing him. He was also in our inauguration ceremony. He's not just quiet, he's working behind the stream, conscientizing people, not just Christians, but his followers. And everybody, both in Nigeria and in the diaspora. Idahosa, I know, is not quiet. Idahosa, I know, was in the inauguration yesterday, and he's not resting on his oars. A tireless worker in God's vineyard is also trying to make his mark in the political space. Just like the professor that doubles as a pastor in Redeemed Camp. I speak of the VP to Buhari, Speaking of Buhari again reminds me of the issue of APC. Buhari has told the world that he has done his best. And once you have done your best, you cannot do better. It's just like a woman that has reached her menopause. If a woman gets to her menopause, it can no longer procreate. So it is good we take the APC away from the equation, we take the PDP away from the equation, and even the Labour, so that you can allow us manifest the Kwankwaso ideology in the State House, so that the miracle in Kano, the miracle of the Mira International School, students, not only in Nigeria, but all over the world, that Kwankwaso has trained. They are already here, they're on ground, campaigning. So just inaugurating the Board of Trustees, the Presidential Campaign Council yesterday is of no moment. because we have already been talking to ourselves for a very long time. And we are all going to be in the UK to ensure that we also honor that invitation. And nothing more pretentious, with due apology to Oliver Wedding Holmes.
I thank you so much. But just before we go, I'd like you to just respond to Doctor's question with regards to the value of your vice presidential candidate. So you've compared him to Professor Yemi Osinbajo. We know that he is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He served in government as the Attorney General of for Lagos State and Commissioner of Justice. So it'd be great to hear what is the bargain, aside being a pastor and being a bishop, what's the value of your vice presidential candidate, Bishop Isaac Idahosa?
Bishop Isaac Idahosa cannot be quantified. Bishop Isaac Idahosa has been a tireless worker in God's vineyard. He has also been a student leader. When you talk about Professor Osinbajo, you're probably looking at a very gargantuan figure. So we're not going to talk, we're not competing or comparing. But like I told you, let me leave you with what the rabbit told the mountain when mountain was boasting of his gigantic size. He told the mountain that talent differ. All is good and wisely put. If I cannot carry forest on my back, neither can you crack a nut. What Professor Osinbajo is doing now, my VP will be able to do more. Like I told you, he's working. He has always been working. He has always been known to be a distant member of the Kwakwasiya union. The mere fact that he's a Muslim, he's a Christian, does not stop him from being a member of the Kwakwasiya. And he spent considerable time in part of northern Nigeria, even though he's from Edo State. So these are things that are in the kitty, and we don't want to let it out now. If you go to our manifesto, you see a more robust manifesto. Perhaps you'll not be able to see Idahosa as a strand, but he's always there, giving all the support to Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. And I repeat again the umpteenth time that defeating these parties, evil past that refuse to quit the scene, who want to dominate the present and even usurp the future, is going to be like a piece of cake.
Thank you, Mr. Abubakar.
We are very serious about it.
Thank you, Mr. Abubakar Yesufu, spokesperson for the New Nigeria People's Party Presidential Campaign Council.